Welcome everybody to episode number 324 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens, they're still a thing. I am Brian Goulet here from Goulet Pens, and today I'm going to be talking about how I remember and keep track of all of the very slight variances of colors across lots of special edition pens such as LAMY Safaris and things like that. Ink cartridge plugs damaging your feed posts and what to do about that. Very specific question, but we'll get into it. Thin pens like the Diplomat Magnum, but with more weight to them. Got asked for recommendation. I got a bunch to show you. How my growing up around my parents' at-home business influenced me and the desire to start Goulet pens. I'm also going to be spotlighting the Sheaffer Legacy, and I have an update on the Menace, if you happen to catch last week's personal update. Let's get into it, starting off with some feedback. All right, I got an email that came in. This email came in, says, another suggestion for a YouTube video that I wanted to make for some time now. Rank inks based on how well they behave, such as bleeding, on bad paper, like printer paper, thermo paper, such as receipts. This could be interesting for all the people who want to use fountain pens on company forms. For me, that is one of the reasons I use Scabiosa in my daily writer, Rowan Cleaner Scabiosa. That's a great idea, actually. Unfortunately, there's nothing that indicates from the manufacturer which of these inks might be better for that purpose than any others. Probably the ones that come to mind for me would be like Noodler's X-Feather, because it's made to resist feathering. They have a couple different colors, black and blue, and the pigmented inks like Sailor, the Kiwaguro, as well as platinum pigmented black, or carbon black, pigmented blue, carbon black, Chowkuro. So there's a few of those. They don't specifically state that as a thing, but I know the pigmented inks do better with that. So yeah, that would be interesting. I would have to test a bunch. That would be the only problem. I would have to figure out how I want to test that. So I like the idea of it. It would take a little bit of research and a bit of testing. So I don't know, maybe I'll talk to my team, see if we can, kind of share that load and do that. But it's very interesting. So I'm curious if y'all have any experience with that, particularly things that are good on things like receipt paper and really absorbent, like carbon copy forms and things like that. Let me know how that goes. So if I get some more information, if I get to testing it, that would be a pretty cool video. So I appreciate the suggestion there. And then Lisa Ann Art says, can you do an ink video on the best pink inks, please? That's a really good idea. That sounds like a great ink showdown. I have not done pink inks yet. I did red, but not pinks. So the biggest question I have, if I was to do that, is would I lump all pinks together of all ranges of colors, or should I split out magentas separate from like hot pinks or powdery pinks? We have a pink filter drop down on our site for pink inks, and there's a mix of everything in there. But, the magentas look pretty different than your hot pinks. And there's a decent number of magentas. I could see making two separate videos, one that's like magenta focused, another one that is more just hot pinks, but I'm not quite sure. So what I would want to do is make like one pink video, and then turns out there's a bunch of, other ones that I could have included if I had separated out the video, and it's kind of too late to do it at that point. But I don't know. I'm curious. So I would love y'all's feedback on that. I will mention some of my favorite pinks that are out there. Pilot Hiroshizuku Yamabudo. It's definitely more in the magenta family, but I like that one a lot. It's a fan favorite as well. Diamine Hope Pink. That's if you want like a really bright, hot pink. That one's good. If you're looking for more of a pale pink, Jacques Urban Rui Donc Rusty Anchor. That one is much paler, really good shading though. Robert Oster Rose Gilt Tint. It's a shimmering ink, but really cool. More of on the rosy pink, like a pale pink, but with some shimmer in it. So yeah, there you go. So let me know which pinks are y'all's favorites. So maybe I can look into those, and I'll see how I might want to split that up. But I like that idea. I think I can do some pinks too. Janae will have some opinions about that as well. She's all about some pinks. All right, let's jump into some new stuff. I have a bunch of things to cover. Not as much as last week, but I do have some cool stuff. So let's check that out. All right, first up, I'm very excited about this one. This is the Diplomat Viper in green. Now, I will be completely honest with you all. I have kind of slept on the Diplomat Viper, and I got called out for it a little bit because I did not include it on my top pens of 2024 last year. And part of that was because it did technically come out last year, but we got so few of them and sold out so quickly, it was hard for me to gauge how hot of a pen it really was. Well, Finally, we have some more consistent stock of them, but literally up to this point in this year so far, it's been kind of in and out. I know they've been very popular. They're limited on production of them, and so I'm excited about that. So I think I'm actually going to sit down and do a full video on the Diplomat Viper soon. So look forward to that. But there's 4 colors now that they've done: black, blue, brown, and green. And I'm excited about the green. I'm actually keeping one of these for myself, even though I already have a blue. I'm going to try not to collect every single one of colors of these, but you know what? Maybe I just will. I don't know. It's a nice looking pen. So it's $100 for this pen. It's 125 MSRP. Steel nib pen, but it's a hooded nib. So I really like this a lot. It's very cool. It's a fine medium nib. It's only 1 nib size, which is, we've talked to them about that. That's their limitation right now, but that's all they can do. It uses a standard international cartridge converter, and it comes included with a converter. And it's got a nice engraved kind of almost like a guilloche kind of diamond hatch pattern, like you would have in like maybe a tool grip handle or something like that, if you're like an everyday carry fan. It's got a little bit of that feel to it, but it's also got a really nice shape and nice slope to it. It's not like real bulky looking. It's very sleek. So I like that a lot. And it's got a really nice kind of soft sliding magnetic cap as well. So yeah, it looks really nice. So go check that one out if you have not seen them yet. Maybe if you've liked the Viper but haven't liked the colors, maybe this green one will be up your alley. Next pen I have, this is an exclusive, Goulet Pens exclusive. This is Monteverde Prima Piston in purple marble. So we already have the Prima Piston. That whole model is an exclusive to us. We have a new color coming out that we've been kind of sleeping on for a little bit. Spoiler alert, we picked the color a while ago, but we wanted to wait because we liked this color and we didn't want to launch everything at once. So we've been sitting on this one for a while, so I'm excited to be able to show it to you all. It's $92 for this pen. It has got a German-made Jowo number 6 nib and stainless steel nib, extra fine, fine, medium, broad, 1.1 stub, and OmniFlex. And it's nice. It's like a demonstrator barrel. You can see the ink inside of it. Rose gold plated trim, which looks really nice. And this has their new plasma treated feed system, which Monteverde has been doing, which helps with ink flow. So you can check that one out. Also, I have another color update to an exclusive that we have, the Monteverde Innova Fiberglass. And this color is called Ruby. This is a special edition. We're not going to have this one forever. We have it as $52, so even more affordable. These pens are nice. They got a nice snap cap to them. Yeah. So I don't even know if I have it handy on me. I don't think I do, but we'll have pictures up there. Yeah. So this is just another color. It's not technically a carbon fiber weave because carbon fiber is only black. It's technically a fiberglass material, but it's the same weave type of pattern like you would see with carbon fiber. But it's a nice ruby red color. So you can check that out if you're interested. It's the international converter that comes with it on that. And yeah, that's it for that. We have a new Retro 51. This is a popper that they're coming out with called Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You're probably familiar with that story. This is a Robert Louis Stevenson from The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's a nice neon green, glow-in-the-dark printed barrel with glossy black illustrations on it. They are individually numbered, and they are rollerball pens. They're going to be $68, and yeah, pick them up while you have them now because they're not going to be around forever. And last but not least, for sure, I have these really cool pens. I don't know if they're going to launch by the time this video publishes. They're set to launch on Friday. I'm recording this on Tuesday, but it's possible that they could get delayed. I don't know. But the official launch anyway, they'll be public. You'll see them around. But if we don't have them in yet, it's because we haven't gotten them. We're going to launch them as soon as we get them. But you can at least sign up for email notification if we don't have them by Friday. Anyway, what am I even talking about? This is the Ferris Wheel Press Bijou Lord of the Rings sets with pens and ink. Now, these are full on, licensed pens. They look pretty darn awesome. The pens themselves are fine. We don't normally carry the Bijou just because that model of pen, not our absolute favorite, just in terms of its use and stuff like that. It's a metal barrel pen. I would not recommend posting it. You technically can, but it's got metal threads on it. So I would be cautious about it scratching the material. So definitely don't do that with this limited edition. But if you don't post it, you're fine. But the presentation and the design and the theming and the packaging on this is phenomenal. And it's a great pen for the ring on the center band for that reason alone. Even if as a pen daily user writer is not your favorite, just to buy this thing, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, which I'm not that well versed in Lord of the Rings. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to try to pose that I am, but I have talked to other Lord of the Rings fans that we have in our company, and this thing is pretty legit. So go check it out. The theming is really cool. There's 2 different pens that are each themed separately. Three different pens. Shadows of Mordor, Dawning Silver, and Verdant Voyage. So they're different colors. They have their own inks that are heavily themed as well. It's cool. The inscription on the grip of the pen is different for each pen, as well as what's on the nib. So not only are they different colors, but different designs on them. The packaging, itself is different for each of them. And then the inks are all different with custom artwork as well. It's pretty cool. Ferris Wheel Press does a phenomenal job with this. And, if you saw their Superman series that they did not too long ago, that looked really good too. They nailed that. And I think this is even better. So great kind of earth tone, jewel tone colors that they picked for these. And it's going to be pretty awesome. So they're going to have a pen that is going to be coming with a 28, they're going to have a pen that's going to come with a 28 milliliter bottle of ink. And then we're also going to have 10 ml bottle of ink as well, which is a little more affordable if you want to get a nice gift for somebody who's a Lord of the Rings fan and is also a pen fan, I guess. Then you can get that. And just the packaging alone looks pretty awesome. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about those. So if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you're going to want to check these out. All right, that's it for new products right now. Let's get into a couple of company updates, shall we? I didn't mention this in the new products, but I will, let me see. Let me go ahead and show you. I guess I'll turn on the overhead. I have a new pen from LAMY. This is the Studio Special Edition called Orion. It is a really nice kind of it's like a dark maroon color. It's named after the constellation. Don't ask me exactly how this color coincides with the constellation, because the constellation, like the Orion, whatever itself, is it's a whole bunch of stars and stuff like that. So it's all different kinds of colors if you go look out there. But anyway, it's just a beautiful looking color. If you're into this, the LAMY Safari Scarlet that came out earlier this year, sort of similar in color. I'm going to be showing that in more detail in a video, but I'll just kind of show it next to that. So it's a little less of the purple tone to it. But either way, it's a Studio, different pen, same nib though. I'm going to do a full video on this probably if this is Friday and you're watching it. I think I'm going to launch it maybe Saturday. So that'll be coming. I couldn't talk about this pen yet until today, until Friday the 5th. So anyway, we don't have it yet. It's going to be coming next week, so you can sign up for that. It is their special edition for this year, and I think it looks pretty neat. So when I do the video, I'm going to do comparisons with other colors, just like I did with the Scarlet, and then I'm going to do ink recommendations as well. So you can look forward to that coming here soon. And then also, we're going to have a mental health half day on Friday next week. So that'll be pretty fun. I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing for that yet. At this point, that's like a week and a half away. I don't know what I'm going to need mental health wise at that point. Maybe a long bike ride or something, because the weather is just really, really nice here in Virginia at this point. I think we're past the summer heat and we're getting into beautiful fall. Fall is my favorite season of the year. I love when the leaves change. It gets a little cooler. I stop sweating so much. You get to wear hoodies, you get to, wear long pants, which are things that I cannot do in the summertime. So yeah, I really look forward to fall. Kids are back in school, getting back in the groove of things. Holidays are upcoming. So yeah, I like this time of year. Bugs start to go away. I love that. Anyway, okay, that's it for company updates. Let's get into the questions. All right, this is a question I got from Eric in an email. It says, with all the limited editions and special colors, how do you remember what the manufacturer's official color was a few years after? For example, the limited edition LAMY Safari in Scarlet just looks purple. It bears no resemblance to what is traditionally thought of as scarlet, or even what a Pantone or hex number would render as scarlet. How do you remember and keep track? This is a great question. With effort, I will say, in short. I will say it's a little bit easier for me to do it for pens that we have been a part of launching. So if it's a pen that I've become very familiar with, we've photographed it, I've done a video on it, especially a video comparing it across different colors of different pens like I did with the Safari Scarlet. I got that video. You can go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I'm making ink recommendations, all these kind of things. I'm spending a little more time with these pens, so it sticks a bit more in my memory. Now, years later, because I've been doing this 16 years now, it can get difficult to remember exact details, especially if it's like been a special edition from years ago that sold really quick and it wasn't a big thing that stuck around a long time. Those can be tough. But I have a couple different ways that I personally manage that. So one is, I just spend time with it and I kind of know. It's something that we are taking pictures of. Everything that we have launched, everything that's been, something that's been released since we started our company sticks in my memory a lot more, obviously, than anything that would have come before us. So I do have some pens that I've, retroactively collected that were things that came out before we carried the brand. But, I have access to all of our images that we've ever done. So that can help, But even still, we have to go through our servers and look through all these images, and we have tens of thousands of images on our servers. So even that can take a little bit of time. So one thing that we do that helps, honestly, we do it for you all, but we do it as much for me and my team as anybody else, is on our blog. We have special edition history blog posts for all the pens that you would probably need to reference a lot. So the Safari, All-Star, the Studio, a bunch of TWSBIs, 580s, and the Ecos. We've got them for Edison Premiers. We've got them for Benu exclusives. We've done, a number of different pens that we've done that have done special editions, or things that are, things that sell for a period of time and then end up not being on the website anymore. Because if we just left everything up on the website, not only is that, going to clutter up the site a little bit, but then, it's not necessarily the best for SEO and stuff like that from like a search standpoint. That's just a choice that we've made years ago. So we don't leave stuff up on our site that we no longer sell, which means that if we don't have it somewhere like in a blog post, it can kind of get lost to history. And that's certainly happened with a number of things. But oh my goodness, I haven't actually kept track of how many different, just exclusives that we've done alone. You're into the hundreds of pens. And then if you talk special editions and stuff, who knows, thousands probably since we've been in the business. So it would be a lot to keep track of. So we try to curate that into these blog posts to make it easier to reference for you all. So that's one way that does help. And I absolutely reference those all the time. Not to mention, if I've shot a video on something, I would like to think that I retain everything from every video I ever shoot. But I've done thousands of videos at this point, and some things blur together a little bit over time. So, something as fresh as the Scarlet is not going to be an issue. But, if you're talking about some specific like LAMY neon safaris, I'm going to have a hard time remembering what year they came out and what exactly their names were. I can definitely tell the difference between some of them, and I can get it right most of the time. But specific details, I need to reference, so I will definitely reference my own stuff I've produced. And that helps me a lot. But, one thing I did want to show you is I'm actually undergoing a project right now, where I'm labeling my pens physically, because it has gotten more difficult over time as more and more colors have come out with brands like TWSBI, with brands like LAMY, where there have been such slight differences between, a pen they did a decade ago and one they've done recently. And it's easy to get them mixed up if you don't really know what you're looking for. So not only do I need them for my own reference, but other members of my team might use them for various reasons. So it helps to just have them physically labeled. So had I done this from the beginning, it would not be so daunting. But here I am doing it now with, well over 1,000 pens that I'm managing. I'm not going to label everything, but the ones that are these like special editions and stuff, I'm certainly doing that. So I keep a spreadsheet with everything in my collection. In that spreadsheet, I have all kinds of information like nib size and what I paid for it and all this kind of stuff. But I do specifically have in there if it's a special or limited edition. If it's numbered, I put a numbered edition on there. I put when it was released, when I like acquired it. And if it's a special edition, like is it, for which year, that kind of thing, and then the specific name of it, obviously. So that helps me for reference purposes so that I have actually more information there probably than we even have in our blog post. The blog post is more of a visual thing. But then I just wanted to physically show you what I have. So in my pen cabinets that I have over here off to the side, I will have these trays in there with all the pens broken out into, the ones that are like the Safaris where I've got gobs of them. I think I have 2 full drawers that are just Safaris, which shows you just how many Safaris I have. But I've got these little labels. So sometimes they're hand drawn. Sometimes I'm trying out printing some and stuff like that. But, more or less, I basically just need, what the pen name is. So I may go back and update like when they came out or whatever. I think I'm doing that with some newer ones. This is an iterative thing for me. But it helps because, if I want to know, like here's the yellow versus the neon yellow, right? It's pretty obvious which one is neon, but it's nice to know. And then this one here is the mango, right? So just having these labels really helps me just for quick reference, if nothing else. Most of these I can tell, but if you're looking at, aqua sky next to the blue macaron versus aquamarine, having those labels can really help. So there's lots of different ways you can do that. These tags are ones that I bought pretty generically. I can't remember where I got them. But they were much fatter. They're just like price tags, that you can get. The strings were really long, so had to tie those up and then cut the labels so they're a little thinner. So you might have to modify them a little bit, but there's definitely ways that you can do this. And most pens have clips, so a little tag like this is a pretty easy way to do it. I don't love the way that it looks in my tray, so it looks a little messier with these tags everywhere, but for pens like this that I need to reference and, I want to make sure I get the light rose different from the powder rose, it really helps me to have the labels there. So then I just have to worry about if I'm going to use them in a video or something like that, I need to make sure that I'm keeping track of the tags and all that. But that's pretty easy. If I just got a pen or two and I'm, showing it in a video without the tag and then I put it back, I put the tag right back on, that's pretty straightforward. The biggest project has been when I have something like Safaris where I might have 100 of them, or probably more actually, going through and doing all the labels at once. That gets a little much, and I got to make sure that I get it right. But yeah, so that's my process basically. So it's definitely work to keep track of all this, but it's work that's well worth it, especially for me if I'm going to be referencing it and then showing it to you all. I want to make sure that I get this stuff right in video form, so that I'm getting you correct information. If it's just your own stuff and you're labeling it, does it really matter how accurate you are with names and dates and all that stuff? It's totally up to you. It's your collection. You can do what you want, but this is how I manage it. And hopefully that's helpful to you. Question number 2. This is from Fountain Pen Nexus Wizard. Excuse me. Hello, I use brass caps, ink cartridge stopper on a standard cartridge twice to refill them and destroyed 2 pen feeds, the small tube. I don't know why. The end of the cartridge must have been modified by the ink cartridge stopper. I do not recommend this system. Is there a more reliable product? Okay. I took this question because I have no idea, which sounds kind of crazy. I want to show you what I have because I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not 100% sure. And mostly I'm curious, and I wanted to see if any of you all have any experience with this. So leave me some comments if you know more details here. The way I read this is you're using a stopper to stop up the cartridges. The wording was a little weird. I couldn't tell if you have some kind of system to refill the cartridge itself, or rather than just using, like an ink syringe, like I've got here. This is how I refill my cartridges when I do. It's not often I do that because I'm a converter guy. But if I need to refill a cartridge and then you want to plug it up, the only thing I've seen commercially available, I guess, but it's boutique made. I honestly don't remember where I got this. Adrian from our customer care team gave this to me, but it's this little plug that goes on there. And I've seen Some people make various things like this. I've seen some that are like 3D printed and stuff like that. And so that maybe that's what I'm thinking you're talking about, rather than like some other system for actually filling it. But either way, you have your cartridge. So, from what I understand, what you're talking about, this is a Monteverde Regatta that I've got here. And I just have this because I can disassemble it and show you that feed post that I think you're talking about. So if I unscrew the nib unit out of this, here's the feed post. Now this is actually the post on the housing. So this actually wraps around the feed post itself. If I pull the feed out, see if I can do this gracefully. Sorry, I got to take it off overhead cam there to get it positioned right. Okay. So I'll pull it out. So here, this is the feed post right here. So this part is pretty thin and is somewhat delicate. So if you are, hitting that or bending it in any sort of a way, I can see where you'd break this off. I believe that's what you're talking about. However, it's inside this housing here, which protects that. I've never personally broken one of these feed posts off the actual feed, except when I've been handling it outside of the pen, or if I've pulled it and I've pulled it apart and gone like this, kind of like twisted my hands as I'm pulling it out and snapped the feed post because I'm hitting it on the edge of the housing as I'm removing it. I've had that happen, but I am racking my brain trying to figure out how using a plug to stop up your cartridge, how that could modify the inside of the cartridge. I suppose it's possible. If whatever, I don't know which product exactly you have that you're talking about. I would stop using it immediately, whatever it is. But if whatever it is that you're plugging it up with is somehow marring the inside of the hole on the cartridge, and then that is somehow jamming up on the feed post, that's a problem. And if it's breaking off, and if it's done it twice, I would say that's an issue. So I will be completely honest. I have not experienced what you're talking about in this exact case. However, I guess I could see how that would happen. The reason I took this question though is because I think I have a better solution for you that's better all around, because it doesn't cost you anything, really, because you probably already have this at home. I've talked about this in Q&A before, so I won't demonstrate it, but you can seal up an ink cartridge using hot glue. And I've had really good success doing that. It's not going to be, you can't like use it and then plug it back in as easily as if you have an extra little doodad like here. But it does a really good job of if you're just, filling up an ink cartridge because you want to, just have ink cartridges that don't normally have ink that comes in cartridge form, and you want to have it in there. You just like using the cartridge format. You want to have them as spares, and you like to refill them. So yeah, you can do up those. You can put hot glue on them. You'll want to, pop the hot glue off of there before you install the cartridge on, but then it doesn't modify the cartridge in any way, at least from what I've tested, and you should be good to go. So that is my recommendation for your situation. I don't think you need to buy anything else. I'm not aware of anything else, again, because I don't know exactly which type of plug thing that you have. I can't recommend something different because it would be really bad if I was like, oh, I saw this thing and it was the exact same thing that you have. But anyway, I just wanted to show you kind of how that works, and solicit anybody else who may have used these things or had any experience with them to see if y'all have heard of anything better, or if you have also experienced this too. That would be something good to know. Not a lot of people refill ink cartridges. I will say a lot of people refill ink cartridges and then use them right away. Not as many people are refilling them and then plugging them and like carrying them with them. That's less common, but certainly a helpful thing to be able to do when you want to do that. And hot glue is a great way to do it. So that's my answer for you. Thanks for asking the question. I appreciate that. All right, next one. This is from Lynn Thomas, 8457. The Diplomat Magnum, which I do have in Prismatic Purple, is my absolute favorite pen I've tried, and I adore the thinness of it. I have written pages upon pages with it. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. If you have recommendations for other skinny ones in metal, please let me know. I'm looking for something weightier. Well, I have some pens to show you. So here's a Diplomat Magnum in case you're not familiar with it. It is a pretty thin pen. It's a very light pen. It does have metal components, but they're not very substantial. And overall, the pen is 12 grams, which is super duper light. One of the lightest pens that we have. So, and it is also very thin. Not only is the grip kind of thin, but it's got, some kind of like flattened indentations that give it sort of more of a triangular grip feel, which obviously then like shrinks down the diameter of the grip there of the part you're actually touching. But it's a great little pen. I'm glad you enjoy it. The nib especially is awesome. So, that nib, it's a steel nib, but it's a little bit bouncy. That we're not going to find quite as much on these other pens, but I'm really going off of size and weight, kind of like what you mentioned. So I don't have all the dimensions of the grips and all this kind of stuff. So I've got a bunch of pens that I'm going to show you, but I physically wanted to show you each one of them so you can at least get a visual sense for them. I will talk about the overall weight. So like I mentioned, the Diplomat Magnum is 12 grams in total, which is quite light. The immediate pen that came to mind is the LAMY CP1. So this pen is even thinner than the Diplomat Magnum. It is definitely one of the thinnest pens around. Pen writes great. You can post it pretty easily. This is a very popular pen. It's kind of like a, call it a purse pen or like a checkbook pen or something like that, for people that want to, keep it like in their checkbook or something like that, somewhere where it's really out of the way. Me personally, it's not the most comfortable pen to write with because it is so thin, but I have very large hands. But if you like really thin grips, this might be the one for you. It's not a ton heavier. It is 17 grams, but it's metal and it's heavier and it's thin. So I thought that would meet all the criteria that you have. And then I have a bunch of other pens. So the next one I have is the Sheaffer VFM. So this is a 20 gram pen. So it's a little bit more substantial in weight, but still not crazy. And in fact, this one, the Expressions, doesn't have that different of a color scheme than the Prismatic Purple. So I thought that was kind of neat. So that's why I wanted to pull this one and show you. The grip is going to be similar in size. It's maybe a little bit thinner, but probably by the time you are touching the flattened portions of the grip on the Diplomat, that's about where the VFM is going to be. We also have a Sheaffer 100 if you wanted slightly thicker grip. That one's a little more substantial of a pen. So I went with the VFM as the mention because that one is a little thinner and the color scheme's pretty spot on. So that one I think is a really good option too. I got another one, the Kaweco Lilliput, and I wanted to show this one because I haven't shown it to you on video yet, I don't think. And it comes in its own little tin and the packaging is pretty cool. It's got this kind of like holographic color shifty kind of sleeve, which looks great. It's got a nice little tin. And this is the Lilliput Colibri, which is this rainbow PVD, which looks pretty awesome. Very bright. If you're familiar with the fire blue, slightly different kind of thing going on with that, but this is much more vibrant than the fire blue because it's rainbow PVD. Very durable as well. Now, it's up there in price. You're talking $170, I think it is. But it's also cool. It's got a multicolored nib thing going on. This pen is very small, very thin. But if you post it, it's not too bad. But it is definitely on the thinner side, especially right at the grip. So here it is next to the Diplomat. So thinner grip even than that. But I thought it'd be a cool option for you. You can get it in other colors. It doesn't have to be this Colibri one, because the Colibri is definitely a more expensive version of it, but there's lots of other Lilliputs that have been around. This one is going to be 21 grams, so a little bit more substantial, barely, than the Sheaffer. There's a brass version of this too that is 23 grams, if that matters at all. But yeah, so that might be a good option for you as well. Let's see, what else have I got? Pilot Metropolitan. Now, overall, this pen is going to be a bit thicker. So I don't know if it meets your criteria quite as much, but I thought it was worth a mention because the grip itself is thinner. So overall, the pen itself is a little bit thicker, but the grip itself is fairly close. It's also a great writer. And so I thought that was worth a mention. This one is going to be 26 grams overall. So it's a little bit heavier overall, but if you don't use the cap, it's fine. It gets you a lot closer to what you're used to there. That one is definitely a good recommendation. What else have I got? The Traveler's Brass Pen. So this is I actually keep this in my pocket. This is the very pen that I keep in my pocket every day. So it's a great pocket pen. I like it for that reason. It is a very, very thin grip as well. Overall, the pen is pretty thin. Here it is next to the Magnum. And yeah, the grip is definitely thinner. Now, is the grip on this thinner than the Lilliput? Let's see. It's going to be close between the two. It's pretty darn close. The Lilliput may have it just by a little bit. Yeah, I think it does. But the Traveler's is great, especially as like a just quick, keep it in your pocket kind of pen, carry it around, pull it out every now and then. It is cartridge only. That's the only problem, but then so is the Lilliput. But yeah, you can refill your cartridges. Just don't plug them up with that other plug system. What else have I got? I got 3 more. This one, if you want to upgrade the nib quite a bit and you want to go with a gold nib, the Pilot Grance. So the grip on this one is going to be maybe just a hair thicker than your Diplomat, but it's not too far off base. Overall, the pen is pretty comparable in size, but it's going to be a little heavier. So this one is going to be 27 grams, just like the brass Travelers. I don't know if I mentioned that this is 27 grams, but I mentioned it just now. So yeah, this one, but it's got a Pilot Gold nib, writes great. In fact, I think this is the best writing pen out of the whole bunch here, but it's still a relatively thin pen. And so yeah, you can check that one out, but you're going to be pushing like a $200 price range for this one, for that gold nib. 2 more pens to mention. I've got the TWSBI Precision. Now, overall, this one is on the thicker end. It's more like a Pilot Metropolitan, but it's the same kind of thing that the grip is a little bit thinner. So comparing the grip to your Magnum, it's going to be pretty close because it's got that step down. Overall, though, the pen, pretty good weight, 30 grams. So this is going to be definitely, more than twice what you're used to with the Magnum. But if you're not posting it, it's not quite as bad. So great writing pen there. This is the Gemini color, which looks really cool. There's also this is the plain, gunmetal one. And then last but not least, the Diplomat Viper. So this one is, sort of a tapered grip. The grip is going to be a little bit thicker than your Diplomat, but if you hold it closer to the end, depending on how your grip is, because it tapers like that, it could feel very similar to you. I tend to grip it a little bit further back, but that's okay. It's still a little bit on the thinner side, but it's a great pen. I love the hooded nib on it, so that's cool. That's interesting. And we have the new color that just came out, so maybe it was worth mentioning. So yeah, there's the Viper as well. This is a 30-gram pen as well. So you got a nice range of prices. You got a nice range of weights and sizes and stuff like that. But all of them, I think, could be good candidates for you for getting a slightly heavier, thin-gripped pen. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. All right, last question for this week we got from Steam Dome 9162. Was your motivation to start a business influenced by your parents owning their own business? So you've heard my backstory at least a little bit here. So my parents started their own business in the house. They did desktop publishing back in the day. This is graphic design kind of stuff back in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was definitely not as common of a thing way back then. So I grew up around computers, a lot of early Macintoshes and stuff like that, which, had terrible computer games back then. It was not the same Mac that it is today. So I grew up with early Macs and, I learned how to do things like Quark Express and FileMaker and early versions of Photoshop and stuff like that. So I don't know. I really enjoyed that as a kid. So my parents had that business in the house from the time I was like maybe 4 till about 13, 14. Then they ended up, graphic design was changing quite a bit then. They merged it into a print shop with a couple of partners and then ended up selling that, to an even larger print company because just the whole print industry was consolidating and they sort of saw the writing on the wall there. So it was less of like, gangbusters, super successful business and more like they had to do something or else they were going to get completely made obsolete. So they did what they had to. But, it was pretty humble, parents doing something somewhat on the forefront of technology, but in, it's relatively mild-sized city here. I saw them working 16-hour days most days of the week. Lots of stress, lots of client relations and these types of things. Many times they had to like refinance the house to buy the next piece of, technology equipment that they needed for the business. So it was always a bit strapped, but even though I saw them working all the time and there was, a degree of stress to go along with that, they were around all the time. They were in the house. So I think I was, as a younger child, I was less aware of how hard they were actually working, because they were around when I just needed to, I was certainly not allowed to touch all the equipment. That was made very clear, because I'm a tinkerer. I loved to touch, things and push buttons and all that. And, to think of, when they had to like refinance the house to get this certain type of camera or whatever that they needed. And then here I want to like play with my Ninja Turtles on it. Yeah, it's no wonder that they got upset sometimes when I did that as a kid. But I don't know. I had a great experience as a kid. It's like once I got slightly more responsible in like my later elementary, early middle school years, then I was able to actually do some stuff for them. I remember like doing like, clipping paths and doing drop shadows on images for catalogs and brochures that they did. And I'd do that for hours on end. I would tape up boxes in the print shop and I would staple invoices to manila folders and these types of things, and some of them, it was like brainless kind of bindery work that I would have to do. Like, I remember there was one spring break, I think I was in 6th grade, and there was this brochure that they had to do for their company. I forget what the company was, but it was like a paper brochure that had a square cutout in the front of it. And it was for some kind of ecological something or other. And there were, these apple seeds, or these that had to go in like a small bag and then be stapled so that the seeds were kind of hanging, so they were in the window of the brochure. So we had all these seeds, and we had to put them in the bags and then staple the bags to these things. And I think we had to do something like 10,000 of them. So, I remember my spring break from school, my 6th grade year, I recruited a bunch of my friends, and we were just in the print shop, and we were just, filling bags with seeds and stapling them to these brochures for an entire solid week. And then several weekends after that too. So, that type of stuff, I did a lot of that as a kid, which I loved because it gave me an opportunity to work. It gave me, a chance to kind of like be involved in what my parents were doing. My parents always worked together, so they were very unified in what they were doing, And so there were a lot of aspects of that I really liked. Not to mention, I am like completely unmanageable as an employee. So I pretty much knew early on I was going to have to kind of, cut my own path. So, for me, it was more a matter of how do I make this not happen? Not, oh, I wonder if I should do this. It was like, I knew I had to do my own business. And, I had a good example. I had a good experience, growing up with that, with my parents. It was very meager means that we had a lot of the times. But it, for the amount of time I got to spend with my parents and the quality of life, I really liked it. I remember so many times, my parents would have to go on like client calls and stuff. And me and my sister, we would literally be sitting in like the lobby of a print shop, hours after it had closed. So we're literally sitting in like these front entryway lobbies of a print shop doing like making up radio programs for each other. And this is long before, iPads and smart devices and stuff. You're talking like late 80s. And so, we would just be sitting there playing, just using our imagination, using a tape recorder and recording various things, I can still remember like the smells and stuff of these print shops because that was just our life. So, my parents, they would work all day, and then we'd have to do these client calls. And so they would take us, and then we'd like go out to eat or something like that. Ate a lot of Fuddruckers back in the day because kids used to eat free under 12. So, this sounds ridiculous now, but we used to be able to eat a family of 4 at Fuddruckers for $10. Doesn't that sound insane now? But that was kind of a while ago. So I guess inflation's hit quite a bit. Anyway, so we would eat at Fuddruckers a lot. I just had a lot of great experiences as a kid doing that. So I wanted to replicate something like that. Of course, I knew I was not going to be able to do anything like that. I was going to be a pen craftsman. That was originally what I was going to do. And then that morphed into Goulet pens as it is now. Largely that was a big motivating factor for wanting to try to do something like that, was because I liked the lifestyle as a kid of what that was offered. And I recognized that like, Oh, it was not so easy for my parents, but I thought it was great as a kid. So it was less of I saw what my parents were doing and it looked like a great lifestyle for them. It was more of, oh, they're just kind of there working all the time. You know, it was just like a given. But it was great for me as a kid. So I wanted to do that for my kids, less so like I wanted to work 16-hour days, which is largely what we ended up doing, getting Goulet pens off the ground. I don't work 16-hour days anymore, thank goodness. But there are times when it gets up there. So yeah, but in those early days, oh, absolutely. 16, 18-hour days were the norm to get it off the ground. So yeah, essentially I ended up kind of replicating something not too far off from that. Now, granted, our business grew a little faster and we're an inventory-based business. So, you know, we were not a service-based business. My parents had just computers and stuff that they could work off of. And so it was a little more containable, I guess, you know, because they had like an employee here and there in the early days when it was in the house. And they would have clients and stuff come to the house. So I remember, you know, we would get to know the clients and stuff like that. But, you know, I was this little kid running around doing my thing, playing with Kinects and Legos and Ninja Turtles. But you know, I was part of it. So I got to interact with adults and, you know, work with various things. So I enjoyed that. But it was different with us running an online business, shipping product out. We needed more storage space and stuff like that. Just running a product-based business, it just takes up more space than a service business does. So even though I set out to replicate something, honestly, like the original goal that Rachel and I had was just for the two of us to be able to work from home and draw a paycheck. That was all we ever aspired to do. We were not trying to grow a company. I never even thought in the first year or two as we were operating, I never even thought about hiring an employee. It was literally just like, I mean, because think about it. This was in 2009. Well, when we started making pens, it was 2007, but you know, 2009, 2010, it was just me and Rachel. We did not think that online fountain pen retail was going to be what it is now. We didn't think Goulet pens was going to be what it is in its current form. So yeah, we had pretty mild aspirations. So we thought, yeah, we'll just have the kids at home. We'll raise the kids in the business of the house, and you know, basically be it. It ended up growing faster than that. You know, we couldn't really help it unless we were like, what are we going to do? Like treat customers worse or like not carry products that people want to buy? Like, how would we contain this thing? So we just sort of rode a wave a little bit. We got super lucky with our timing, and you know, the business grew. So, you know, it's interesting because as I reflect now, you asking this question got me to think about it. It's like, you know, we were only able to keep the business in the house for about, you know, I consider like the business, you know, we had the pen making things, which I did for 2.5 to 3 years before we really hit on the fountain pen thing. But once we started doing the fountain pen thing, that was in 2009, November 17th was our first day that we listed fountain pen products online. That's what we consider to be our company's anniversary. So from that point, it was about 2 years that we had it in our house. You know, and originally we were thinking like, oh, maybe we'll, you know, add on a bigger garage or we'll move to a bigger house or something like that. But it was very clear from like the zoning in our local area that like, you're not supposed to run a business with multiple employees out of your house. It's really not what's supposed to. You need to get a commercial space. So we very quickly realized like, oh, we're going to have to get an actual place, which we did. We did that. We ended up moving the business just before, like 2 months before my daughter was born. So here we are having to move the business out of the house. And then we moved our personal home as well very quickly after that because we outgrew the space there. But yeah, we did that. We moved the whole business as Rachel was 7 months pregnant. And we had our son, who was a 1.5-year-old toddler running around. That was just kind of a crazy time. We had 5 employees at that point in our house. It was a 1,400 square foot house with a 500 square foot garage that we were running the whole business out of. It just took over our whole life with, you know, the kids, and she's pregnant, and it was just crazy. I don't know how we actually did that. If I had to do that again, I don't think I could. I don't have the energy to do that again. I'm glad I had the foresight to take all that on when we did, because I would not have it in me to do it again. So where was I going with all that? Yeah, so the obvious thing for us, we had no money. So getting, daycare or anything like that wasn't really an option. So we just brought the kids with us to our space. So we, essentially had like a nursery of sorts, Rachel and I, she mostly like, she was nursing and all this stuff. So it's like, she kind of had an office, but it was also kind of a nursery, and we had baby gates in the office and all this kind of stuff. So we would end up working together on the couch, and, I'd be floating around, I'd be shooting videos, she'd be doing stuff. We'd have meetings and we'd have to trade off. And, my parents came in and helped for a little bit and watched the kids at the office. But it got to the point where it was like, once our son was 4.5 and our daughter was 2.5, it got to be just too much to manage at the office. We had a team of like 20 people at that point. We were having to have actual meetings and plan and figure stuff out. And it was just having 2 young toddlers running around the house, or around the house, running around the business, just got to be too stressful and too much for us to handle. So we ended up, we were really torn about it at the time, but putting them into a preschool, we were torn about that, and we cried that first day that we dropped them off, and then we came back to the office and it was all quiet. I cried. Because it was just like, wow, I had this vision for what we would end up doing, working out of our house with our little family. And now here we are, not in our house, and our kids are in this preschool. It's like, what happened? So there was a little bit of grief there, because it actually wasn't what I had originally envisioned. But that's okay, because what it morphed into with our team and, our kids, Rachel and I, we were originally thinking about homeschooling and all this. Her and I are not wired for that. More power to anybody that does that. We're not. COVID showed us that we are not wired for that. But it all worked out. Our kids have been great. They got very socialized. We still involve them a lot in the business. They've helped out. They make up ink syringes and they label ink samples and all this kind of stuff. So they've been involved here and there. We had Joseph helping out with some photo editing and stuff like that this summer. So they've definitely still gotten to do some of the same stuff that I got to do when I was a kid, and they're just not having to like live and breathe it quite as much as we did. Though when they were younger, we were steeped in it all day, every day. But I think largely they've kind of forgotten stuff that early on. And so I think we've done a better job of being able to give them a sense of kind of some life balance. But even still, it's kind of cool that we Rachel and I work together. We're very unified as we're talking about things in the business. We're aligned. It's not like we have to do 2 completely different things every day. And we do still do plenty of different things, in the business, but it's not like we're living in 2 completely different worlds. And then we come at the end of the day and we're having to catch each other up and all that. The kids are seeing us be very aligned and making choices together and all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a lot of really good aspects of what I appreciated as a kid that we've been able to provide for our kids. Some things have looked a little bit different, but then of course it's going to. But I look at our kids now, we're tight as a family. My kids are very well adjusted. They're doing well in school. They've got their own interests and their own things going on. They're going to have all kinds of different opportunities, but they're also growing up in kind of a different world than I grew up in too. So in the end, I have no regrets about any of that. It was really friggin' hard. It was really friggin' hard to take all that on, because Rachel and I were 25 when we were doing all this. So we were 25 when we had our son, and we started the business up really, we got in the fountain pen thing like a couple months before he was born. And so all of that was happening at the same time. We were eating a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a lot of Campbell's Chunky soup and Stouffer's, boxed meals. We never went anywhere. We didn't vacation anywhere. We didn't go out ever for anything. Our family would come over to visit and we'd put them to work. Our parents would, visit us and feel so bad for us, grinding away all day, that they would take us out to a restaurant so that we could see the outside world, every now and then. But in the end, I have no regrets. It's been a great life. So to answer your question in short, yes, my parents running a business out of the house greatly influenced me, and I've done my best to replicate that for my own kids. So cool. Let's get into the pen spotlight, shall we? The Sheaffer Legacy. All right. So Sheaffer is a brand that we've just gotten reintroduced to this year. We used to carry them years ago. Never carried the Legacy. We only had, because previously the Legacy was a gold nib pen. And I've got a little bit of history here to show you. I've got the pen here. This is the new one, the revamp. And then I'm going to, show it to you. I'm going to ink it up and write with it. But I wanted to show you, I've got this cool book. So this came out in 2013 because Sheaffer started in 1913. So they did this for their 100-year anniversary. And look at that, right on the cover. This is the Sheaffer Legacy. Now, you would think like, oh, maybe this is a super old pen. The Legacy actually started in 1995. So I guess, that's 30 years ago. You could say that that's old at this point, but they have a lot of other pens that are a lot older. So this book is kind of neat. We got this because I got the hookup because we were carrying the brand at the time. But it's really cool. They've got all kinds of history of various things. But even as you're flipping through the thing, it's very obvious that like the Legacy was meant to be a pen. It's like, boom, there's a Legacy. But see, 18 karat, right? So this is a gold nib, but that inlaid nib, super cool. They did it on a bunch of other things. I don't think it was exclusive to the Legacy either. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a Sheaffer vintage expert. There's the Legacy nib again. So, boom, there it is. So you see it everywhere. So it's really cool because they just changed ownership. Sheaffer's it's not the same brand that it was a long time ago. It was just a staple, like American brand back in the day. Changed ownership a bunch. It's not made in the US anymore. Just like most pen brands, it's kind of went the way of like Parker and Waterman and, Conklin to a degree, though that is now at least owned American. There's another one. But I wanted to show, because I did find this one picture of, I know I'm just like blowing through this and y'all are like, I want to see all this cool stuff. They have a lot of like advertisements in here as well. So this isn't just like a super nerd technical pen book, but it's, it's got all kinds of cool Sheaffer pens, I'll tell you that much. Let's see here. I don't know where you can get this book or if you even can. All right, so that's what I wanted to show you. So this right here is a Sheaffer snorkel that has that same nib on it. So it was not a nib that was developed for the Legacy. It goes back way previous to that. I think this is from like the 40s or the 50s maybe. So this inlaid nib goes back quite a ways. But the only modern pen that I remember seeing it on was the Legacy. So anyway, I won't flip through the whole book, but I at least wanted to show you that because I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, let's get into the Legacy. So it was bought, the brand was bought by William Penn, which is, a chain of retail stores in India. And if you look at their website, like I don't really know them personally, but they seem to do a really good job. I think they're pretty well respected. I think they have like 40 different stores in India. So they know pens, and that makes a big difference because when we carried them previously, they were owned by a venture capital firm that owned Cross and Sheaffer. The stuff that they were coming out with, they didn't really know pens, honestly. But William Penn does. So I think that's really cool. I think so far, at least from what I've seen, they've done a really good job of bringing back things, like the VFM expressions with some good colors. They've done the coffee editions. I really like what I've seen from them. So I do want to commend them because it's not easy to, try to maintain a legacy of a brand. And then, a pen like this to bring it back is not easy at all. And, from what I understand, with this pen, something, I don't know any of the details and how much of this is rumors or whatever, but I believe that they were not able to get or keep or whatever the original designs or any of the equipment that had the original inlaid nib. So they had to redevelop this from scratch. So that takes some passion right there. So this is the Legacy. Packaging is nice. It comes in this nice sleeve here. I don't know if this is real leather or not. It smells like real leather. So I think it's real leather. It definitely feels like real leather. But in any case, packaging is really nice. The back is very solid. So they're definitely doing right by the brand by keeping all that. The pen itself, very well made, consistent with the brand. It's metal. It's pretty substantial. 44 grams overall in its weight, similar to like a Monteverde Invinci Deluxe, a LAMY Dialogue CC or a Diplomat Aero. It's a little bit heavier than Aero, but pretty close. If you take the cap off, you know, the weight is closer to like a Pilot Vanishing Point. It's only 27 grams. And it's a substantial enough pen where you can definitely write with it unposted. But there you go. You get that same inlaid nib. It's a stainless steel nib, you know, so whereas previously, I don't know what the Legacies were selling for before they stopped making them, but I'm pretty sure it costs a lot more than the stainless steel one does now, especially now with the price of gold. Who the heck knows? But anyway, this pen is just over $200. Which is, you know, not nothing for a stainless steel nib, but for an inlaid nib like this, it's pretty neat. So it's definitely at a price point where it's like you might need to think about it a little bit, but that's part of why I want to show it to you too, because actually I've been very pleased with how well it writes. It's only one nib size. It's a medium nib, but it's on the finer side of medium. It uses Sheaffer's proprietary cartridge and converter. So it does come with a converter, which is nice. And then yeah, it's a brass-bodied pen, so that's where some of the weight comes from, but that's also why it feels so sturdy. Yeah, it's got your feet in there. You know, it's inlaid. You know, the cap seals pretty well, at least in my experience. You can't quite see it in there, but it does seal off nicely. And it's a snap cap, which is pretty smooth, pretty fluid. It does give a little bit of a snap. You can post it on the back. It does not snap to post. It just kind of presses on there and definitely like sits deep down in your hand because of that 44 gram weight. So I do like that. And actually, while it's posted, that actually feels better in my hand than it does unposted. It's pretty well balanced either way. I want to say maybe it's maybe slightly front weighted, but not terribly. Because again, it's not like it's a heavy metal grip and there's a plastic body or anything. It's pretty consistent throughout. So even when it's capped, it does cap pretty deep on here, you know, so it's like if I put it like that, you know, that's how deep the cap is posting. So it doesn't change the balance of the pen all too much, but it does sit down nicely in your hand. You know, if I was writing with this for a really long writing session, I would probably not have the cap on it. But for just quick writing and stuff like that, you know, especially the snap cap, push to post, it's a great like quick jot kind of a thing. And because, you know, the feed here doesn't have a bunch of exposed fins, the cap seals nicely, it's a pretty reliable writer as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and ink this thing up and write with it so I can show you all how it writes. You don't get a sense of how it feels, but I will try to describe it to you. And then I thought, why not use a Sheaffer ink? And they have a cool scented coffee ink. You know, they've done some coffee themed colors on the 100 and the VFM. So I thought that'd be kind of neat. They used to have these like clear plastic boxes, which they do still have some. I guess they're like converting them over. So we do see those some now. But on the coffee ones, these are all going to be the new ones. It's kind of cool. They unfold like this and it's like, boom, you get this little thing, sort of like a Chinese takeout plate that you can like undo. So that's kind of neat. Some decent presentation there. Yeah, but this is the coffee scented ink. I will say this is the strongest scented ink I think I've probably ever used. The smell endures. It's not like if I leave it uncapped, it's going to stink up the whole room or anything. But you can definitely smell it. Ooh, it smells a bit like Bailey's or Kahlua. It definitely smells like coffee, but it's got a little bit of a, you know, it's because there's like other chemicals and stuff, obviously. But it's got a bit of that to it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and ink this thing up. Now I have written with this before, so this is not my first inking. I did in the nib nook, so you can see it there. And there we go. So I'll just kind of stick that in and then drop some ink in there. There we go. Oh, I need my paper towel. Where did I put it? Okay. There we go. I can definitely smell that coffee. Sheaffer ink has got some, we're carrying the line of inks. They've got some nice colors. The purple's really nice dark purple. The turquoise is good too. Most of their colors are pretty good. They're nothing crazy, but they're pretty saturated, pretty vibrant colors. So, yeah. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to, see how I can write. Oh, let's see here. I never know what to write. So we'll just go with the pen name. Sheaffer Legacy. This is the first I've actually written with this ink. The ink is pretty wet. And this is a medium nib. Boom. It does write fairly wet. My experience before I was using it, I've written with the Sheaffer Purple ink, and then I was using it with Noodler's Black for the nib nook as well. The lines were a little finer on there. I think some of the broadness of this line might actually be the ink, but it dries really quick though. So I think it's absorbing in and it's drying. Look at that. Look how quick that dries. That's crazy. I know this is more about the pen than the ink, but wow, that is impressive. That does not happen with most inks. That's pretty cool. Do I still smell it? Oh yeah, you can smell it. Let's see here. The nib itself is fairly rounded, but it almost feels like it has a very slight stubbiness to it. You know, if I go across versus down, it seems like down is a little wetter, a little broader, so that's kind of cool. You know, if I want to go like this, I like that. I like that grind. So that's pretty cool. Flow's very consistent. You know, of course I did just ink it up, so I want to make sure that, you know, I'll try and absorb some of the extra ink out of there so I can not have it just be that initial fill kind of saturating the feed. So I'm going to suck up some of the ink right out of the feed. And then we'll see how it writes. Okay, it's not as gushy as it was, but it's very smooth. Like you can't hear anything. It's quite smooth. I'm not having any stopping or starting issues. I do these little dots. This is something that, you know, most of the Dibmeisters do to see, you know, and then you can also do these little tick marks. That shows if you're going to have any starting issues. That's usually a way that you can see if that's going to happen. And you can do it at different angles too. Okay, so at a higher angle, I had a couple of dots there that weren't going. But overall, pretty good, especially holding at a lower angle. If I look at it, you know, I'm not looking at it under a loop here, but definitely seems like at a mid or low angle, that's where it's going to be the wettest. If I write it at a higher angle, a steeper angle, then that's what it ends up looking like versus a lower angle. Yeah, look at how much darker and thicker that line is. So it's not like a zoom nib, like a Sailor zoom nib where it's like graduated, where it, you know, is going to be able to do that drastically. But, you know, it is definitely a pen that is, you know, going to write wetter as you hold it further down. Overall, it's a very comfortable writer. I actually really enjoy this a lot. Now, the only color that it comes in right now is this black and chrome. I would imagine they've gone through the trouble of developing this nib. They're probably going to consider expanding it, but I'm sure it's complicated. You know, so I would be very curious to see how popular this particular pen ends up being. It's been pretty popular for us so far. In fact, the reason I'm talking about it now, not when we first launched it like a month ago, is because we sold out. And, you know, I wanted to wait until we had a little bit more reliable stock in there. You know, so that's good to see. I'm glad to see that. What else do I need to talk about? The clip itself, it's a spring tension clip. Pretty sturdy. It's got the white dot up there, which Sheaffer is known for. Very minimal branding otherwise. You know, it's got just Sheaffer simply on the band right there. It's got a big band, but it's just plain. So that's kind of cool. And then it just says Sheaffer right on the nib there. Nothing too gaudy. Very professional looking pen. So, you know, this would be very appropriate for an office setting, doctor, lawyer, that type of situation, I would imagine. Yeah, so that's what I got for you. So Sheaffer Legacy, check it out. I'm glad they brought it back. I think it's a pen worth considering if you like this kind of thing. All right, let's talk about my adventures, shall we? I have not done anything too crazy recently. You know, had a little bit of time off. I actually took last Friday off. For the most part, I worked a little bit in the morning, but then the kids had off school. And so we went to King's Dominion, which is like our theme park that we have just outside of Richmond here. And yeah, we just went there because we thought that it would not be that crowded because most kids would be in school. And the park, it's getting to be like after Labor Day, I think they go to weekends only. So we thought, but it was actually pretty crowded. So, and several roller coasters were closed down. So, it's fine. We ended up having a good time. I was not feeling super roller coastery myself. So I was mostly kind of sitting around waiting anyway. But we coordinated with a couple of their friends and they had a really good time. So that was fun. And then, let's see here. What else did I do? The weather was beautiful this past weekend. So did a lot of work outside, finished power washing my house, which was good. I literally took me 3 iterations to be able to actually finish power washing my house, which is not normal for me. This is the way my schedules ended up working out. Let's see. And then what else? Did some cycling, which was great. Some more drumming, of course. But I mentioned my son's got his learner's permit, took him out, got him behind the wheel for the first time. Now, granted, it was literally in an empty parking lot. And I don't even think he pushed the gas pedal. He let his foot off the brake and coasted a little bit. We practiced parking a couple of times. And that was mostly just going over like what's in the car. Like, I've been driving for the majority of my life. So, I take for granted how much I know about how to drive, but literally having to explain like, oh yeah, here's the turn signal, little, whatever it's called, rod, whatever the thing that has the turn signal, but it's also got high beams on there and it's got all these other lights and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, there's kind of a bunch of different buttons and doodads on this thing. And he doesn't know any of this stuff. So I've got to explain all that stuff. And here's how you park. And here's how you do this. And you put the key in, but then he's like, the key is like kind of locked. And I'm like, oh yeah, you have to push in a little bit, to get the key to turn to the next thing. It's like, I don't think about this stuff anymore. So honestly, I feel like I'm having to relearn as much as he is, but Rachel's like, she gets motion sick and stuff like that in the car. So she's like, yep, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. You're going to do all the teaching. And I'm like, that's fine. I literally teach for a living here. So that is totally fine with me. Very cool under pressure when it comes to that kind of stuff. So he's such a cautious kid. I'm not worried about him at all. He didn't even want to like actually move the car. He was like, I'm okay getting behind the wheel and learning some stuff and starting it and turning it off. But I was like, you're good to drive it in an empty parking lot. So yeah, he drove, I think no more than 5 miles an hour. He's like pressing the brakes. He's like, he's very cautious. So I'm glad he's not a reckless kid, but I have a feeling I'm going to need to be like nudging him. But either way, we broke the seal. He is now officially someone who's driven a car. So that's pretty cool. So yep, I'll be doing a lot more of that with him. But most importantly, I have an update on our menace, the bird that, the goldfinch that has been, casually terrorizing us. Turns out it's a lady. It's a ladybird. We know this because, we've been taking pictures and video and stuff like that. But we more specifically know it because she had a little bird friend that showed up who is another goldfinch who is a much brighter yellow. And we're like, oh, interesting. So once we actually researched like, oh, male versus female, whatever, apparently the males are brighter, which is very common in most of the animal kingdom, but in the bird world especially. Usually the men are flashier. So yes, we had a much brighter new yellow bird that showed up. And then our menace that we've gotten to know and love so dearly is the ladybird. So here we are sitting here with our menace. And now we're like, oh, great. Now there's 2 of them. But I got to say, she has been much more chill since her boyfriend has showed up. Also, we've been filling the bird feeder more, so maybe she's just not hungry all the time. Not that there's not plenty of nature around, but either way, she's eating bird seed all the time. She's got her boy toy. Life seems to be pretty good. They're still hanging around the house a bunch, but she's not like sitting there pecking the window all day. So I'm trying to get some like footage or pictures or something, but it's not easy with the 2 of them because they're much more, active. So I'll include some of that here if I can, but, Just trust me. We got 2 birds now. So that's been fun. They're still showing up. Who knows how long they're going to be around. But I thought that was kind of fun. So, we've nicknamed the original bird is the Menace, but her boyfriend we're calling Dennis. Dennis the Menace. Thought that was fun. So my kids are having a blast. Unofficially, we've adopted that. We don't have any pets at home, so we've unofficially adopted these as our outdoor pets. So that's been fun. So that's been the fun thing around the Goulet house that we've had recently. And then the kids, they had a sleepover. They had, good stuff, some friends over and all that kind of stuff. So this has been lots of family stuff, cleaning the house, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's been it. So I think that's pretty good for this episode. We'll wrap it up. I do have a fun fact, so stick around for that for just a second. Just want to thank you for watching. Continue to ask me questions. I look in the YouTube comments primarily, but we've gotten some emails here and there just to our info team, info@gouletpens.com. You can always email them or whatever. You can message us on various platforms and stuff, and we'll eventually get to it. But yeah, so that's it. Check out gouletpens.com for all the products and stuff that I've mentioned here. We do sell them in case you weren't aware of that. That's kind of what funds this whole thing. And my fun fact for this week, I pulled one completely randomly. But I'll watch all kinds of random like science content on YouTube and stuff like that. I love to learn random things, and the algorithm, knows it could be tractor stuff. It could be welding. It could be Rubik's cubes. It could be random history or science facts. My algorithm probably thinks that there's about 12 people that watch my YouTube channel because I have some very varied interests. But there's one channel that I follow called Practical Engineering. Does a pretty good job with that. Very straightforward, nothing sensational, but just solid facts and some good videography stuff there. So, there's a video called Why Railroads Don't Need Expansion Joints. So very nerdy kind of sciencey stuff, but I thought about that and I was like, yeah, metal expands. You see that all the time with bridges. You see that with like concrete slabs and things like that, because as it heats up, it expands, and you usually have to leave joints in there so that they can expand and fill the joints. How does that work with railroad tracks? I didn't actually know. So I was curious. I saw this video and I watched it, and it's a good video. It's very long. So I'm just going to hit on kind of the synopsis of it. I totally got this information from that channel. So, but I'll include a link in the description as well, so you can see the actual channel if you want to watch the whole thing. But basically, I wrote a little synopsis here. Ever wonder why modern train tracks don't need expansion joints? You probably didn't, but now you do because I just mentioned it. They use what is called continuous welded rail that eliminates the need for most joints. They make most rails 39 feet long because they're very heavy. So to be able to manage them, that's the longest they can make them really, especially to fit them on like a tractor trailer type thing. So they make that long, and they thermite weld them in place. There's separate videos I've watched on how they weld train tracks, and it's pretty awesome. Thermite is crazy. So anyway, what they do is they prepare the steel, and they install them at a temperature that's like kind of in the middle of the extremes of whatever climate that it's in. So if you think about it, like the sun hits it, it heats up, the metal expands. Well, if you weld it when it's really, really hot, then it's going to shrink, primarily as the weather gets colder. And if it's really, really cold and you install it, then it's going to expand a whole lot more. So they kind of cut in the middle. They go in between and try to install the tracks and build them when it's at a moderate temperature. That way it's going to expand a little bit in one direction. It's going to compress a little bit in the other direction, but it's not going to be as extreme. It's going to move a little bit less because you're kind of meeting it in the middle. So they do that for one thing. And then they, if you ever seen, they have like the railroad beams, like are they called ties? I think the ties are the nails, right? Maybe the ties are the wooden things. I don't know my terminology. But either way, they have these wood, railroad, wooden things that they nail them down, and they really nail down the tracks. Like they are in there really good. So those railroad ties will hold down the tracks. And essentially what happens is they use those ties to hold the rail sections in place. so that they are basically under tension the whole time. So you get a long continuous track. It used to be like back in the day, they would have spaces between these joints so they could expand. But the problem is it would make a loud clacking noise every time the wheel would go over one of those joints, which would then cause like undue wear, would cause the cars to rock back and forth. And then that would create more maintenance issues as well and some safety stuff over time. So these more modern techniques that they have with better alloys and these better welding techniques and stuff like that, they're able to have these long continuous tracks with these welds in there with no expansion joints. And that makes it smoother overall. That means that the trains run smoother, they run quieter, and there's also less maintenance and safety issues there. So I did not know this, but a 1 mile section of train tracks can lengthen up to 2 feet in length in the heat, which over a mile, okay, that's not actually that much, but still, that's kind of crazy. But what happens is like they end up basically holding things in, the ties end up holding these tracks in place, and they do expand slightly, but they're basically held under tension. So they don't really move much. Some of the math on that is that it's roughly 15,000 PSI that these tracks end up being under when they're like fully under load like that. But that's still significantly under the maximum tensile strength of these track steel alloys that they use. So that's kind of neat. So you can nerd out a whole lot more on that. I know enough to be dangerous. I'm not the authority on this, but there's a really cool YouTube video out there if you were curious about train track welding and all that. I live near a set of train tracks, so I like cross over it every single day. So I think about it a lot, especially because I've been cycling a lot more too. And so I'll go over it all the time on my bike as well. So I see train tracks all the time. So I'm always thinking about this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I am kind of curious how train track welding happens. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that fun fact. That's all I've got for you this week. So should be back next week, just like normal. So keep asking me questions, and hope you have a wonderful week. Enjoy your pens, and write on.